Imjul says, what would you recommend for someone who considers the supernatural to be farcical and that there is always a natural explanation, even if we're not aware yet? This is my huge hurdle with religion. Well, one thing, I mean, okay, so let's think about this position. Imjul says that they have a problem with the supernatural, and there's always a natural explanation, even if we're not aware of it yet. Well, okay, that's a philosophical assumption. Now, per the philosophical principle known as the principle of sufficient reason, we can always assume that if something happens, then there is some sufficient reason for it. There's an explanation for it. So that's a point of common ground. Both the naturalist and the supernaturalist can agree if something happens, then there's a reason for it. Things just don't happen randomly with no cause. There's a cause and effect relationship that we see. So what we're talking about here is not, is there an explanation, but what kind of an explanation is there? And the naturalist is assuming that the universe operates according to a single set of laws that apply in all cases. And that's a possibility. God could, or even if there wasn't a God, one way or another, the universe could operate under a single set of laws. But what the supernaturalist claims is that in addition to the laws we see operating in the physical universe around us that we can detect with our senses and with technological extensions of our senses like telescopes and microscopes and things like that, we see one set of laws operating in the physical world around us, but we also see evidence of another set of laws operating that occasionally affect things in the physical universe. So essentially, the claim that the supernaturalist is making is that there's at least two sets of laws that operate in reality. Now, if you just define nature as, well, it's all of reality, then of course all law is going to be natural law, but then you haven't really changed the question, because there still could be two different laws operating in largely different realms. If you call both of those realms nature, well, you haven't changed the fact that there could be one set of laws operated in this part of nature and another set of laws operated in this part of nature. So that's just a terminological trick, if I can put it that way. It doesn't really address the issue of, do we see one or more than one set of laws operating in the world? And even then, you can have sort of boundary questions about, well, how do we distinguish one set of laws from another? But I think recognizing that the assumption that there is always a natural explanation, meaning a non-supernatural one, is an assumption, I think can help open one's mind to, well, then what would the alternative look like? And how could I identify the alternative? How could I find evidence for the naturalist, rather than having it just be an assumption? How could I find evidence for it? And how could I find evidence against it? And I think that there are some possibilities there. One of them is by looking at evidence regarding scientific miracles that have been documented scientifically, like various miraculous healings in the cases of saint canonizations, where they've brought in medical experts some of whom are atheists, and they say, yeah, there is no explanation for this event that happened. We have no way of explaining this scientifically. It's not just a remission. It's not just, this disease is not known to go into remission. This is just, or this guy's leg got reattached after it had been amputated. There are medically documented miracles that need to be taken seriously, and that would indicate that there's something out there besides the normal laws that we see operating in medicine. Also, one can look at the paranormal at the evidence of parapsychology, because there are a lot of there is a lot of documentation in favor of parapsychological phenomena, including psychic functioning and including various death-related experiences like near-death experiences and deathbed visions. I've done a considerable amount on Mysterious World about survival-related issues, and we've got good evidence for survival. And I'm going to be doing more. In particular, I'm going to be looking at death. At near-death experiences that contain veridical information. That is information that was not known to the person at the time they had the experience, and that goes beyond random chance and that turned out to be true. So I've got a whole book devoted to. It's got over 100 cases of veridical near-death experiences that have independent medical witnesses, and I'm going to be drawing on that in this upcoming episode on that. But I would say, Jewel, thinking about one's assumptions and how one could then find evidence for or against the assumptions, and then going and looking for evidence against the assumptions to cross-check them and see, do they hold up, by looking at medical miracles that have been documented and by looking at paranormal studies that have been done, both of psychic functioning and of survival-related experiences, like some I've covered on Mysterious World. I think those would be plausible avenues to pursue. And before we go, don't forget to like, comment, share the podcast with others, and subscribe. When you subscribe, hit the bell notification so you always get notified whenever I have a new video. Thank you, and God bless you.